So you wanna be a picture book writer, then you gotta write picture books. And you're gonna need a bucket load of bright ideas for titles, plots, and hooks. If you're partial to prose or you're raring to rhyme, then repeat after me, it's a challenge, but I'm gonna tackle each story 1 month at a time with 12 by 12.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and read my book, and I really appreciate all of you being here for this book chat. I'm so excited to be on a book chat, and especially with my first nonfiction book. Okay, so the illustrator of this book is Anne Lumbalay, and she did an absolutely amazing job. I just can't believe how perfect she was for the book. And I love that she did the spider web end pages. Young Nan grabbed her net and collecting jars and rushed out the door to spend the day with her neighbor and friend, the well-known botanist and naturalist, Marie Meslon. While Marie was interested in plants, Nan loved bugs. Bugs that flew like butterflies and moths, bugs that crept and crawled like beetles, caterpillars, crickets, and spiders too. There are quotes in here and sidebars, but I'm not going to read those. I'm just going to read the story, but they're really good. If you get the book and spend more time with it, you should check those out. Together, they pressed plants and mounted butterflies to create beautiful gifts. But when Marie began dissecting, examining, and classifying specimens, Nan grew bored. In high school, she felt the same. Why look at dead bugs through a microscope when their habits and behaviors were much more interesting? She snuck live specimens into her room, watched them move about, and jotted notes about what she had discovered. Once Nan was older, she kept specimens not in one room, but in her entire house. Bugs had simply taken over her life. When a visiting friend told her he'd used spider silk to repair his surveying scope, Nan was hooked. He explained how he had dropped a spider from an object, gathered the silk it spun as it fell, and used strands to replace the crosshairs, the tiny black lines in a scope that bring an image into focus. An idea began to grow. Could Nan harvest spider silk, sell it, and turn her lifelong hobby into a career? She inspected the flowers and shrubs in her garden and captured a spider from its large web. She noticed a smaller one nearby and then found 3 more. She kept the spiders in jars, fed them flies, and began to experiment. Standing on a chair, she nudged a spider over the edge of a ruler. But each time she nudged, it dropped a short way, whirled around, and climbed back up. The amount of silk gathered was small. There had to be a better way. Could she pull silk from the spider as it spun? It was worth a try. Since spider silk is almost invisible, Nan waited for the sun to cast light on her workbench. Using tweezers, she set a spider on a slab of yucca wood and tried to think of something to keep it from crawling away without harming it. She pulled a bobby pin from her hair, sprung it open, placed it over the spider's abdomen, and pushed it into the spongy wood. It held the spider still. A thread of silk trailed behind the spider. Nan caught it with tweezers, attached it to a wooden frame, and turned the frame to wind the silk. The strands on the frame were a mess, but Nan couldn't believe how much she'd reeled before the spider quit spinning.
Wow. I mean, that is just astonishing. Really, truly astonishing. I cannot even begin to imagine the amount of research that was required to write this book. So, can you talk about that a little?
Yes, it was a lot. I found an article on the internet that said, "How did spiders help the Allies win World War II?" And I was like, what? No way. And so I read that it was their silk that they needed. And Nan Songer was not in that article, but I went down lots of spider holes to learn more about this whole thing, because I thought that was an interesting story in itself. But I kept coming across Nan Songer and all these newspaper articles and magazine articles, and the fact that there were other what they call spider farmers, but she took it to a whole new level. So I found some magazines online and like those newspapers, and I drafted this story, and eventually it sold because I worked so long on it. And I was 6 revisions in with Carolyn Yoder at Astra Publishing, Calkins Creek. And I just offhandedly said to her, you know, Nan wrote a manuscript, but nobody knows where it is. The museum that has the exhibit on her, they've lost track of family. And she said, well, you've got to be a pest. You've got to find this out. And I love that because, you know, spiders are pests. And I thought it was funny. And I'd already looked and looked and looked and looked and looked on all the genealogy sites and stuff. So I just started people searching. And I'd done that before too. And I called people in the town where Nan's daughter worked because Nan was gone. And then I called relatives of that. And then I looked up her ex-husband and called everybody in that town that related to. Then I thought, you know, I'm going to go beyond Oregon. And I did. And I'd seen that the ex-husband had lived in Arizona and California. And so about probably 12 pages into people searches, I looked at every address he had lived at and anybody else who had ever lived at those addresses. And I called people all over the West Coast. And I didn't even say hi. I was like, do you know Nan Songer? You know, I didn't want him to hang up. And eventually I got the granddaughter of the ex-husband of Nan's daughter. And she told me that Nan's great-grandson was a keeper and that he probably had all her stuff, the manuscript she had written and all her research. Sure enough, she gave me his number and he had it all and never looked at it. And so I flew up to Oregon and stacks. Lots and lots of research that I had to go through.
Wow.
So it was a fun journey.
Do it together so never you fear. It's a handy little way to help you kick into gear. You're amazing, exciting. Look out, cause you're writing 12 by 12. 12 manuscripts. 12 by 12. 12 picture books. 12 by 12 this year.